Governor Rick Scott of Florida is one of the most corrupt governors in America for various reasons. We've spoken about this before, but this is the guy who owns a drug testing company, and he wanted to pass a law which mandated that we drug test welfare recipients in his state. So he's just voting to put in his pocket millions of tax dollars. I've never seen a clear example of corruption in my life, but somehow he did it, and with a smile on his face, like, what do you mean? I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm just trying to drug test people and stand up for the right value system. It just so happens I'd get rich in the process, but whatever, look away, don't pay attention to that. So this guy's a real scumbag and a real sleazeball, and he's also one of the most ridiculous governors in the country, not only on issues like the one we just discussed, but also on the issue of climate change. So, for example, last year, a reporter asked Scott whether man-made climate change, quote, is significantly affecting the weather and the climate. And Scott first tried to change the subject and dodge it, but then when he was pinned down, he replied and said, well, I'm not a scientist. I think this is what Bobby Jindal said also. Like, you know, Bobby, you talk a lot about how you don't want Republicans to be, quote, the stupid party anymore. But then when we ask you, hey, do you believe in climate change? Or I think he even did it with evolution. Do you believe in these scientific theories? No. Well, I'm not a scientist, so I'm not going to comment on that. Scott Walker did that as well. That's the new dodge. Just, I'm not a scientist. Okay, but they do exist, and if you Google what they say, maybe you should believe what they believe because they're the fucking experts. But there were times where he was even dumber on that. In 2010, when he was asked if he believed in climate change, then he responded, quote, no. So I guess it was an improvement when he said, well, I'm not a scientist. So today we learn, according to new findings from the Florida Center for Investigative Reporting, quote, officials responsible for making sure Florida is prepared to respond to the Earth's changing climate are barred from using the terms global warming and climate change in official communications, emails, and reports. Christina Trotta, a former Florida Department of Environmental Protection employee, said, quote, we were told that we were not allowed to discuss anything that was not a true fact. The irony of that is overwhelming. That they're like, you cannot discuss climate change and you cannot discuss global warming because we only allow people to talk about true facts via email. Okay, well then step aside as we talk about climate change and global warming. You know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of religious fundamentalists who want to kill people who either leave their religion or draw pictures of Muhammad, where they're like, no, we can't have you do that. We can't have you mock Muhammad. And the reason why they don't want people doing that is because, you know, it's so easy to mock ridiculous beliefs that if you do it, they have no logical response, so they just want to censor you, and they want to kill you. And they want to just not allow you to do it because they don't have a logical counter-argument where they say, look, man, here's why you're wrong and why you shouldn't do that, and here's why Muhammad is truly the prophet, yada, yada, yada. They can't do that, so what do? They revert to censorship and violence. Well, we got that right here. We got censorship here. Oh, you're speaking about something that I can't debunk using my own science or using my own mind. I can't debunk it. Well, therefore, just ban it. I'm not going to allow you to talk about it. I'm just going to say that it's off the table from the beginning, from the get-go. You can't even have a conversation about it because I can't respond to it. That's how insecure I am in my belief that it's not real, that I'm not going to allow you to even talk about the possibility of it being real. So wait, if you don't believe in it, then why do you not treat it like unicorns, for example? Would you pass a rule saying, hey, don't talk about unicorns in your work email for these people? Would you do that? I don't want you to talk about unicorns. I don't want you to talk about, like in the Bible, seven-headed dragons or just dragons. Don't talk about dragons. Well, why would you need to do it? You don't need to do that because it's not real, so you don't fear it. So whatever. If you joke around, mention it, whatever. I don't care. But see, they're so insecure in it that they're like, I gotta ban it because I can't actually explain why it's not true, And I don't want it to be taken as true, so just ban it to get it off the table. Their fucking job is to address climate change in a state which is going to, in many areas, be underwater because of where it lies. That's their job, to address it, and they're like, no, you can't even discuss it. You can't even bring it up. You can't even say the words. You can't even type them out. Look at how unserious a lot of our legislators are. And make no mistake about it, it's a mix of a couple different things, but most importantly, it's a mix of ignorance and stupidity, but also corruption and bribery. Because it just so happens that all these politicians who are the loudest, the most vocal against climate change, they also happen to get the most money from the oil lobby.